How important is your company name when it comes to the formulation and setup and creation stage of your business in government contracting? This is surprisingly a question that I've received quite often over the years, and I never really took the time to answer it, so I'm going to answer it in this video. So in short, how important is your company name to your business and government contracting? Does it influence you winning contracts? How does it work with building relationships? All these things that we would say are important in growing a government contracting business and growing in the space. How important is it? The answer is not at all. Okay, just to be facetious, how important is the color of your ball in bowling? It's kind of like that. Over 10 years in this space, in my experience, I've seen all sorts of company names. I'm not going to list any company names, but I've seen names all over the spectrum. And the reason for that is because a lot of companies come into the into the government space from the commercial space. So they have their company name like, Bob the Builder, or, you can imagine just normal businesses you would see on the side of the street. As you're driving down the road, they come into government contracting, they get registered, they get a cage code, and they still have that name attached to their tax ID number and all of their articles of incorporation, right? All the paperwork that you have to do when doing the formulation and setup process with whatever state you're in, in the country. So you could see all sorts of names. The reason this question gets asked is because I think there's an element of perfectionism coming in, of wanting to do everything right and wanting to, get the perfect name, which I can appreciate, which I understand. Same with like wanting to have the perfect capability statement, the perfect website, the perfect business card. Okay, guys, these things, they can have an element of, I don't want to say an element of importance, but to a certain point, they are important. They get a certain amount of weight, but beyond that point, there is a major diminishing return. At some point, it's good enough, and if you continue to tinker with it, you're not going to improve it that much more by spending weeks and months more on it, right? So put some thought into it, put some effort into it, try and make it make sense. And that's kind of the initial answer that I will give you. Now, I know kind of a follow-up to this question, which is maybe what you're wondering too, if you're watching this, is that, Derek, do you have any ideas, or do you have like a method or an approach? Because, hey, okay, I don't want to be a perfectionist, but I do want to do a good job. So do you have any recommendations on doing a good job and coming up with a company name? I do have a little bit of thoughts. So for those of you who know, this is a little bit more advanced. So maybe in the comments, help each other out, because I know we've got a lot of new folks here on the channel as well. But I recommend an umbrella strategy, which is really like a grouping of similar services. And so when you do that, you're not necessarily one narrow niche thing, which you then would in turn base your company name off. It's more of an umbrella, right? So umbrellas could be grounds maintenance, they could be base ops, they could be professional services. And within those umbrellas, I talk about this in our book, Legal Middleman Strategy, and some of our other courses as well. Your name will change if it's more of an umbrella reflective name, right? Versus a very niche and narrow name, like, Bob or Susie's Electric. That's very niche and narrow. You know exactly what that is. So if you are coming in the space and, for example, you're wanting to do the legal middleman method, or you're just going to be relying on relationships, subcontractors, teaming, and you're not necessarily having a business for 5 to 10 years where you self-perform and you have employees and you just want to expand your customer base. If you're coming into government contracting, setting the business up just to do this, then you might want to consider more of what I'm explaining as the umbrella strategy. And so if that is the case, go through the process of what you think that, and I've got some videos on YouTube that show you how to do this, to kind of identify and back into through proof of concepts, through low-hanging fruit, through taking personal inventory and what makes sense to you, to identify what would be a good umbrella to start with, to move forward with, if you end up changing a little bit, at least it's not going to totally change the total mission of the business, right? Our needs, our mission kind of thing. when it comes to the government. We work backwards from what they need. We don't approach the government and say what we have to sell and make them line up to buy it. We have to work backwards from those services, from those listings on sam.gov to build a business that's in alignment where there is that overlap between what they are buying and what we want to offer. So if we're doing our research, if we're being intelligent about this, we're being very methodical about it, I would recommend designing a name that's reflective of whatever that umbrella is that makes sense, which could be more of a high-level name, a name that's not overly restrictive. I don't necessarily have examples on hand for you, but as I said, base ops, grounds maintenance, professional services, these are a few examples of umbrellas. So taking it from there, depending on what umbrella you want to move forward with, if that's something that makes sense to you, then I'm sure you could use your creative ingenuity based on what I've just suggested to you to take that a step further and come up with more of a overarching name rather than a name that's very specific. Okay, so I will leave you with that. Check out our learngovcon.org site. It's a brand new site. We're kind of doing a silent launch on this, but a lot of the resources I've created over the years, we're kind of doing them a little bit more a la carte. That way they're more economical for everybody to afford, just like our book. That's kind of what got me going down this path. So that way you don't have to get into an expensive course or anything like that to get started and start, learning this stuff. Because I know you guys, you're kind of risk adverse. You want to get in, you want to get started, but you haven't necessarily made a lot of money or any money yet, but you're looking for some tools. And so learngovcon.org will help supply that to you. It's exactly what the mission is. If you like the video, smash the like button. And lastly, if you have a question you want me to answer for you, drop that down in the comments and I will try to answer that in our next video. Thanks for watching.